Stop.
Welcome and thank you for joining us for this virtual artist talk by Rodriguez Calero. My name is Kristen Evangelista and I'm the director of the William Paterson University Galleries. This evening's event was organized in collaboration with the Center for Diversity and Inclusion and the Organization of Latin American Students to coincide with the university's Latinidad Heritage Celebration. First, I would like to explain the format for today's presentation. I will briefly introduce our guest, Rodriguez Calero, and then she will respond to a series of questions. Yolany Gonell, the director of the Center for Diversity and Inclusion, will be participating in this dialogue, and we may also be joined by Mary Martinez and other students from the Organization of Latin American Students. The audience will also have time to ask questions at the end of the program. Feel free to type your questions into the chat box during the course of the presentation. We just ask audience members to remain muted during the event. And I also just want to let you know that the virtual program is being recorded and it will be available to view on the gallery's website in the near future. I would like to thank all the individuals who made this event possible. First and foremost, I'm grateful to Rodriguez Calero for sharing her artwork with us and for her open collaboration, her graciousness, and compelling vision as an artist. I would like to thank Yolany Gonell and Mary Martinez for co-planning this event. I also appreciate the support of Gallery Manager Emily Johnson, Collections Manager Casey Mathern, and our Graduate Assistant Taylor Cassisi. Last but not least, I would like to thank Professor of Art Alejandro Andreas for introducing me to Calero and her work nearly 10 years ago, and for nurturing her involvement with the William Paterson University Galleries. Now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, who can be called Roca, which is short for her full name. Roca was born in Arecibo, Puerto Rico, and raised in New York. She divides her time between New York and New Jersey. She received her BFA from the Institute of Culture, School of Fine Arts, Puerto Rico, and she continued her studies of painting and collage at the Art Students League of New York. In 2015, the monographic survey, Rodriguez Calero, Urban Martyrs and Latter-day Saints, was presented at El Museo del Barrio in New York City. She has exhibited her work internationally for several decades at institutions such as the Paul Robeson Gallery at Rutgers Newark, the Jersey City Museum, the Bronx River Art Center, and the Central Gallery at Hunter College. She has received numerous prestigious awards and fellowships from the Joan Mitchell Foundation, the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, the New York Foundation for the Arts, the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation, and the National Endowment for the Arts. She has participated in artist residencies at the Rutgers Center for Innovative Print and Paper, the Vermont Studio Center, the Brandywine Workshop Center for the Visual Arts, and the Ken Kaleba House in New York City. Her works are represented in many private and public collections. In 2019, Roca made a significant donation to the William Paterson University's permanent collection, which consisted of 48 posters and works on paper, documenting Puerto Rican and Neorican printmaking in San Juan and New York City from 1960 to 2001. This donation was made in loving memory of Angelo Antolino and in honor of William Paterson University Professor of Art Alejandro Andreas. We are honored to have the opportunity to showcase her print, Alma, in our current exhibition, The Weight of the Body, Selections from the Permanent Collection, which is on view at Benchon Hall until November 13. This exhibition showcases works created by women artists to mark the centennial of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which granted many, but not all women, the right to vote in the United States. So Rodriguez Calero, thank you again for being with us. I just wanted to give you a chance to say a couple words before we jump into our conversation.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for attending, and I'll give all my thanks now, just in case we're run short in the end. But I want to thank William Paterson University, Kristen Evangelista, Director, University Galleries, Alejandro Andreas, William Paterson University Professor of Art, Yolany Gonell, Director of the Center for Diversity and Inclusion and the Black Cultural Center, Mary Martinez and the Organization of Latin American Students, and anyone behind the scene, staff who assist in placing this event together. It's been wonderful teamwork, and I didn't realize I've been associated with you for like 10 years. My goodness, it seems like yesterday. I believe I've been in at least 2 exhibits here.
And this is your third.
This will be my third, exactly. And though we're here at this time, I believe the gallery is accessible if you make an appointment.
Yeah.
So come and see the show. Thank you.
So now I'd like to turn to my colleague, Yolany Gonell, who has prepared some thoughtful questions for Roca. Yolany, please go ahead with your wonderful questions for us.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our participants on this experience today. And many of us are wondering the same question, I think. And Roca, I'd like for you to take us back, right? Take us back to the beginning. And as you think about your journey in becoming who you are today, what inspired you to create your initial body of work? And how do you draw inspiration now?
Well, Yolany, I hope I can answer this question. My life's journey and work are parallel. One sustains the other. Like a dowser divining rod, one can achieve good results because random chance, which is lacking any definite plan, has a high probability of finding water in favorable terrain. I sort of laugh at this because, in other words, I am guided by my inner dowser and permit chance to happen. So inspiration may be drawn from anything.
Amazing. And now, as we think about that inspiration and knowing that it is organic and it's fluid and you find that inspiration in multiple ways, oftentimes at youth, we receive messages about who we should be or what we should believe that really quiets our own sense of curiosity and our desires to create. What lessons have you learned about the value of curiosity? And what message do you wish you would have heard maybe at the age of 18, as we think about our community and our students at William Paterson, that you wish you would tell a student today?
Well, we are bombarded with receiving and being given messages that may inspire or dull one's curiosity. This constant has nothing to do with youth. There will be conflict in reception and choice decisions made, but your personal experience will guide your ever-developing base that defines your existence. My advice to anyone would be to listen, to value, trust, and rely on that inner voice of self-preservation called instinct.
Wow. Thank you for that. And we love to see any remarks or feedback from our participants in the chat feature if any of this resonates with you. Our third question, we know that you've been, traveling, you've been showcased, not outside of William Paterson University. And one of the biggest reviews that is out in the media about your work, it's really centered around opening dialogue around identity and expression. What would you say is your proudest piece of work and why?
I love this question. The dialogue is not new, but possibly my work has given acceptance, permission, and a safe comfort zone to discuss more the awareness of identity and expression. And the piece that I am most satisfied with, and for the obvious reason, is the work that connects and moves you, the viewer.
Oh, Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yolany, and thank you, Roca, for those wonderful questions. I have some questions too, so maybe if we want to go to the next slide. Roca, you're known for this signature style and this term that you've coined called acrolage. So I wanted to know if you could tell us a little bit about how you developed this technique, how long you've practiced it, and maybe if this practice has changed over time.
Well, I think first I'll read my statement, Acrolage Paintings. It's the definition that I coined. Acrolage painting is a transcending evolution of mixed media, combination of acrylic paint paper and a form of printmaking. This technique is achieved by layering glazes of luminous colors and with encapsulating rice and image paper. The blending of fermenting surfaces and stencil patterns attains the luxurious paint and textures, which enhances the dramatic intensity of the images. The sensitive and complex simplicity creates a more formal graphic composition, and the strength and balance and the depth of color produces a striking impression of a plastic effect that allows the painting to engage the viewer. This technique permits me to effectively translate my subjects and physically construct the elements in my painting. The medium turns ordinary objects into vehicles loaded with meaning, translates physical beauty into a more elegant form, and elevates the ordinary into iconic stature, which in turn produces a powerful modern symbolic image. This first piece is called Christ of the Christians. And as I continued to create, my direction was evolving, and apparently there was a need to give a sense of understanding and importance regarding my style, since there was constant inquiry regarding my technique and approach to my work. And to appease the demand, I coined the term acrolage painting and formalized and gave definition around 1995. And Christ of the Christian was really that defining point of coining the phrase acrolage painting. Next. Okay, now Cruz de Losada, which was done in 1994, is also, as you can see, my style started sooner, but this is a piece which I really love. It has my profile, which we'll discuss later on, and this was a painting that was done actually for an important exhibit called the Puerto Rican Embassy on the Lower East Side. And Cruz de Losada basically translates, Losada is a term for Lower East Side, Anglicized, Losada, and the cross of the Lower East Side. And at the time I was working down there, and it was an alphabet city, and it's basically was infested with drugs, and it was our burden. And it was a way of also representing other things pertaining, I think, to us as a culture. You know, it's in the cross form, and the angst that occurs when we are shown or placed in certain situations. Next. The Seeker. Now, the Seeker is basically what it is. This is an icon. I think for me, one of my iconic paintings, and it has to do with of who we are and what we are looking for. And it's an imagery that if you look at it, there's on her dress, there are a bunch of eyes and always looking and searching. Next. This is called Divine Prophet. And this is just showing you the different ways I use my medium. As you can see, I turn the imagery into skins, and then I adhere, and you see the abstract and yet very formal style of painting. And another thing I like to do is place the halo to give a certain importance. Next one. And this is called Fallen Angel. Here you can see the skin that I form. And this is actually an imagery that I took. So here I am, you can see it's developing how my paintings are coming from appropriated imagery to imagery that I start to take. And you'll see stenciling. I don't know if you could see it that well on your screen, but you have stenciling, you have the glazes, all the subtleties of the work. And then the last one, this was done in 2019, and it's called Memorias Reflectivas, Reflected Memories. And this was a photograph that I took of my dear friend, who's like a brother to me, of his mother. And we were at an opening, and she was just sitting there so regal. And then I just incorporated it into a painting. And you could see the stenciling behind her, which forms like a seed, and then this mirror, it's reflecting, and it's a very pensive piece, and it's almost her reflecting on her memories.
Thank you. This is one of those situations where it would be so lovely to see your work in person, because all the layers and textures are really flattened by the computer screen. So I regret that we're all here on the internet instead of being in real life.
And also in this piece here, you have the stenciling, but there's like little glitters and things happening, and that's paper that's glued down. And all of this is really accidents. I think we have to embrace our accidents when we're working, and don't be so tunnel vision.
That's good life advice too.
Yes, exactly.
The next topic I wanted to talk about was, and you alluded to this, was the further development in your techniques, where you've shifted from using appropriated images to your own photographs. And in 2013, you developed another technique called Photoprolate.
No, Photoprolate.
Photoprolate, okay.
Basically from fotografía, which is Spanish for photography. The acro is for acrylics, and collage. Acrolage, chincolé is French for collage. So I did I placed them together, and it's a mixed media. So I'll read, and you can read with me. So Photoprolate is a mixed media evolved from my visual fields of expression that are photography, acrolage painting, and collage. This form grew from a physical, emotional, and a developmental need to revitalize my creative processes. The iconic images are intimate, and each one seduces the viewer to become a voyeur to the media element and to make their own personal elucidation. They are reflective observations of complex moments, exploring the themes of mysticism, sexuality, politics, and social customs. These personal and provocative images from archetypal narratives create a new reality and project a universal message that is a testament to my journey. So So here I am, I'm in between studios, and I came from really like a 2,000 square foot studio into like a 400 square foot space that was partially inhabited by my actually an ex-studio partner where I had my first studio in Jersey City. And so I had to conform to my situation. And so I'm really working on table space instead of big floor spaces. So this opportunity to rethink and experiment took form by using my imagery rather than appropriated images. My portrait photos were printed, and instead of making skins, they were adhered to canvas board, where I applied collage acrylic paint in the manner of my paintings. So these are quite small, though they read big. They're 10 by 8 inches, actually. And as you could see, here's my photograph, and then I just started to improvise. And this one is called Ali number 2. It's obvious I did a few of her. And it's just showing different things one could use just around you. So here I have the paint, and I have this Chinese paper of speckled gold and silver. Then I have gold leaf and silver leaf, and then I placed a feather. The next, and this is just showing you different things that I did with my images. And this is my brother Carlo, who's very much a Buddhist in his manner. So he's great, and so he does these wonderful poses, and he has children who have wonderful hands. So I made one of them go behind him and like sort of hold around his head. So with this picture, I just sort of improvised again. It just made me wanted to do something a little bit more mystical, and I think I have a piece of vegetable. When you buy fruits or vegetables, they come in a mesh, and then I had some extra paint lying around that I peeled off, put paint, again, gold leaf. Next, and this is El Poderoso number 3, the powerful one. And this is actually a friend, David, who posed for these pictures. And here you could see I have embossed paper, and he holds his hand in a triangular form. And this is really is a comment on homosexuality, because during the Holocaust, homosexuals were forced to wear a pink triangle. So here he is holding his hand in a triangular form. I have embossed paper, and again, I'm using one of my images. Next. And this is onerous too. And here you can see pattern paper, which I use. I use stenciling and pattern forms in my paintings. And this is my niece, Julia. And I used, what did I probably used a paper from a product of some sort. It says India. But and so these are my photoprolates. And I guess I have, this is called La Guardia. I love going to museums, and sometimes I'm more interested in the guards than I am in the work. And I thought he was just lovely. And so I turned him into a guardian in a way, and a saint imagery. I used gold leaf, and I believed I probably, you could see paint. I maintained the circular halo effect. He was standing in front of an object. This was a garden in Puerto Rico. And then I used, I believe, bubble wrap. And I just pressed into the piece. And that's the dotted effect. And Vidal. Vidal is a friend and a supporter of many artists. And here I used a tattoo. I love tattoos. I did a series of profiles with tattoos, and I bought a tattoo and I started using it. I thought it was interesting to use. So use everything you can. Don't limit yourself. And then the last one is Urbanhood. Now this is a big piece. This is actually 48. Each one are 48 by 36, but I use it as a diptych. And so this is an image that I adhered to canvas. And then I just worked the piece. And it's of my nephew, who's just one of my muses. And a natural, I just say, stand in front of the wall and let me take pictures. And he just stands there and does all these things. But I think this is a powerful piece. It's called Urbanhood 2, because this is the time when wearing the hoodie got you in trouble. And but at the same time, it's profiling. So here he is, he's in his profile. It's profiling if you wear a hoodie. And then I put a vegetable mesh on his face. And I just poured a lot of paper, paint on both of them to get the effect.
Well, it sounds like in these techniques that you've developed, you're really adventurous in your use of materials, the bubble wrap, the mesh. You've really been courageous to step outside of traditional art forms in your use of mixed media. So I was wondering if you have any advice for a young artist who is looking to kind of break from traditions that you've learned from working in this way for so many years.
Well, I have to say, tradition is inevitable. That is how we acquire our knowledge, either through experience or education, the theoretical or practical understanding of a subject. It is the key structure that will influence your approach and guide your experience. Tradition is the supply line that nurtures and shapes your development. Without tradition, there is no means to endeavor your goals. My advice in general would be to gather your knowledge, keep yourself open and diverse, experiment, absorb, observe, and have a passion. Do not place obstacles, doubts, fears, or desire for acceptance in your mind, because there are no mistakes, no right or wrong. There's just the learning process. What one perceives as conventional is unconventional to another. It's just one's approach that will set you aside from the others. Everything has been done. Take the lead, trust your instinct, and most important, not only in your work, but in your life, maintain integrity and conviction. So in a way, if you're discussing tradition, what one perceives as traditional art, if you just take a microscopic point in a traditional painting, you'll see how abstract it is. So you have to learn from what has happened in the past, even when you're dealing with cave paintings or whatever. I mean, so what is a hand? Is that traditional? So everything has been done. You just have to find what you want to do and go for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Roca. Another theme that we've been talking about. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to add more?
No.
We've gotten to see quite a few examples of your work now, and that the theme of the profile has come up. Your work is, figurative. There are people in it in profile. So if you could elaborate a little more about your interest in the profile.
Yeah. Well, the profile came about because I was fascinated by Egyptian hieroglyphs and African motifs as a child. So I guess probably that was my point in life of just viewing the profiles. And basically my work, I feel, is abstract, or what we call abstract. But my abstract to me, in a sense, is really more figurative. And then as I continue to create and bring in the figure form, the easiest thing that I could bring in was the profile, which is my profile. So, so when I finally introduced the figure into my paintings and collages, I intuitively took to that point. And in that, you can continue, and in that, it continued to evolve. So my profile became more animated. So in the first one you saw, it was more rigid, more formal. And here you sort of see how it's sort of like twisting, and then you can continue. And here we are, my profile, and then adding to it and simplifying. This is called Woman of Color. The next one. And here's another one, The Collector. And here, this one's called Enamorados, which you could see, they both have profiles, but at the same time, I think this is a good example. At the same time, you see they're looking at each other. And they're looking at each other, they're focusing on each other, but at the same time, the female figure is looking at you. Now, is she looking at you because her interest is swaying from supposedly the person she's being passionate with, or is she being caught, or is she thinking about what's happening? And then he himself, he's looking at her, but he's got his sunglasses, he's looking to the other side. What is his interest, or are they being caught? So this is very much sort of like a storyline, and it's animated. It's the same as I'm sitting here with you, Kristen, and looking at you, Yolany. You're looking at me, but there's always that little flicker. You're twisting, your eye is going one way, you're shifting. So I'm trying to bring this type of conversation into a piece. And then this one's called Generation. You can see varied, I like this piece. I think it was stolen. Someone appropriated that collage from me, and I'm so annoyed. And this is the only thing I have left from it. But I think it's a great piece. And it's just having three people and different faces and views.
Thank you. So I just want to, as we're going through these questions, remind the audience that we welcome your participation. So if you want to start brainstorming some questions and put them in the chat box, that would be really wonderful. So as I mentioned in my introduction, we're very grateful, Roca, for your recent donation of posters and prints to the university's art collection. And many of these posters were produced at Taller Boricua?
No, Boricua.
Boricua.
Yeah, Taller Boricua. Boricua is the indigenous name of Puerto Rico.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Taller is not taller. Taller means workshop.
Yeah. So can you tell us about your involvement with this workshop?
Well, first, I'd like to say it's my privilege and honor to gift these posters on Alejandro Andrea's suggestion to Benchon Gallery and the University Collection.
Thank you.
I am grateful to you because it was important to find an institution that would appreciate, house, exhibit, and make use of these prints for their artistic, social, political, and historical references to educate the students, faculty, and guests. And thank you, Yolany, for this also. This is for everyone here. And so, and also, I'd like to define, since you mentioned posters by Puerto Rican and Neorican, just in case someone is not aware what a Neorican is. And it is the name given to Puerto Ricans who migrated to the US and their descendants. The term originally described the Puerto Rican diaspora located in the New York City area, but today is loosely applied to those throughout the entire Northeast. You can go to the next picture. And this is a good sample of Neoricans. And this is at the time when it's probably around 1981. And these are just incredible artists, living and gone. And briefly, so I got involved probably around 1980. And I'm just going to say what Taller Boricua, it is a multidisciplinary cultural space founded in 1969 by Puerto Rican artists to promote the arts and culture of the Puerto Rican community in El Barrio, East Harlem, as well as to offer a platform to underrepresented and marginalized artists. It is located in the Julia de Burgos Latino Cultural Center. And this is the piece that, actually partial piece. This is a piece, I've been involved since, for quite a long time with the taller. And probably not physically, but I'm always around, as one can't leave one's community, between the Lower East Side and El Barrio. But we were celebrating their, make sure, it was their 30th anniversary, so they were doing a portfolio. And I had actually the left side with the imagery is what I donated to the Benchon galleries. And these pieces are 36 by 24, and they were diptychs. So here we are, the artists would do the left and right side, but we were paired off with a poet.
Nice.
And we worked with the poet, and I was fortunate. And the portfolio, it was the Alma Portfolio, and I just so happened to title my piece Alma. And I was paired off with Jesus Papoleto Mendez, who is probably one of the founders of the Neorican poets. And he did a poem dedicated to my mother called The She of God. And this piece was done in homage to my mother, who is the central figure in the piece. I don't know if you want me to elaborate a little bit on.
Do you want to tell a little more about the symbolism of the?
Well,
it's a really rich composition, and actually we have I think maybe it's a student who wanted to ask you about your process in regards to composition of a piece.
Well, okay, so I've always been fascinated by icons, religious icons, Russian, not yet, we're still talking about the other. And so basically, this was the time of my mother's passing, It was a tale of a woman. It's sort of like una novela. It's a soap opera, and so it was a tale about I have it a tale about a mother's love, betrayal, sacrifice, emotional abuse, devotion, false accusation, sorrow, guilt, everything you can find in a novella. And so the central figure is of my mother, Yolanda Calero. That's where you have my name, Calero. I use, being Puerto Rican, we use our parents' names. We're given on documentation both names. And she's seated on the throne with dignity above the earth. She is the goddess surrounded, comforted, adored, praised, and protected by loved ones. Didn't help her much, but here we are. And the throne is a symbol of justice and authority. It's surrounded by a lion for power and ox for strength. And these images are basically from icons. A man for wisdom, an eagle represents the piercing supernatural insight. You have the 7 flames at the foot of the throne. 7 is the number of completeness, perfection, both physical and spiritual. It derives much of its meanings from being tied directly to the goddess, creation of all things. 7 spiritual gifts are wisdom, understanding, counsel, fortitude, knowledge, piety, and fear of the Lord. And the sacrificial lamb is a portrait of myself as a child. The lamb symbolizes gentleness, innocence, purity, sweetness, forgiveness, and meekness. It's a most powerful symbol. An animal known for its weakness becomes a symbol of strength, conquering evil through the ultimate sacrifice of one's life. Well, I guess we can sort of stop there. I don't want to continue.
No, that's good.
But it's sort of drama. But I guess maybe the bottom section is actually celebrating, since it is done with Taller Boricua, it's celebrating the 30th anniversary. And in the first row, you have Fernando Salicru. The second row, these are the founders of Taller Boricua, some of the founders of Taller Boricua, Marco Dimas, Irma Ayala, who was the secretary, and El Maestro Rafael Tufino, who's one of our iconic artists. And in the third row, you have Jesus Muniz, and the last row, top right, the artist's eye, which is mine, Rodriguez Calero. So here we are.
Thank you. So that provides a good opportunity for us to talk about.
Just because I do have, if you did go to the next file, I wanted to bring in some of my own inspirations of being a Neorican. So I had done three prints. This is the first one called Neorican Experience. And so here you can see the plantain, the face on the lower right. You have the plantain, and then you have the palmas in Puerto Rico. And so this is, we're always Puerto Rican, no matter whether you're born on the island, you come to New York. If you're born in New York, you ask a Puerto Rican, what are you? They don't say Neorican, they say I'm Puerto Rican, but it's this island. So you're always, whether you're born there or raised here, born there, it's always in your DNA. So this is my experience. The next one. And here we are, you have the apple and the plantains, you have the profile, and you have the blues. These are the tropical. Here we are, we're mixed fruit, or strange fruit in a way for some people. But and the next one. And here we are also again, another one of my Neorican experiences. So, okay.
Thank you. I hadn't seen those works before. That's wonderful.
I don't think anyone has. I'm just sort of looking at them myself now.
Right.
So.
No, but I think that's really fascinating to see you visualize the landscape and the identity in that way. The question I was going to ask you that we were touching upon in Alma and your other works has to do with the role of religion. And I mean, I see a lot of Catholic kind of imagery in your work. And I know you've lived and traveled between many different cultures and countries. You were born in Puerto Rico, but you were raised in Brooklyn. Then you returned to Puerto Rico. You also lived in Spain and France because you received a prestigious MacDowell Traveling Scholarship. So I can imagine that you saw a lot of different examples of Catholicism in those different environments. And if you wanted to talk a little bit about the spirituality work.
Well, since you mentioned Catholicism, I have to say it's been a major influence since inception, and it's part of being born Puerto Rican. I was baptized, taken to a church probably by age 5, weekly and on holidays by my aunt. I received First Communion. We can all identify with this. We received First Communion, which is considered one of the holiest and most important occasions of the Roman Catholic life. But in actuality, it meant that we as children are absolved of sin. Go figure that out. I attended both Catholic school and high school, which was taught by the nuns. So such a burden was such a burden, and I was fortunate to walk away unscathed. Religion, Catholicism, has been an important development in my life and work. What was instilled in me were the stories, the ceremonial events, spirituality, the ambience, art, relics, music, vestments, rituals, and the conflict of decadence. It was the flicker of my awakening that shaped and influenced my perception. So I'm in a way, I'm very grateful. Well, I'm grateful that who I am, but being put through religious schools, though it helped shape me. And I can go to the, I think we sort of jumped, but okay. So here we are. These are some, I would assume, some of my references to religious figures that I have re-envisioned. So these images evoke spirituality, not religion. And this one's St. Anthony. So St. Anthony is really mine. So here we are. We're all born with St. Anthony, San Antonio. And San Antonio for us is though he, in a way, he's very sort of the times. He's still, if you look at it, he also looks not of our times. Mm-hmm. And that's what's wonderful about these works. So San Antonio is the, I guess, really sort of fertility, but it's the saint who helps you find things. Mm-hmm. So for him, he's always in my life, and this is a painting that I actually keep for myself. Next. Just could you go back? And also here you could see the way how I use my stenciling, my patterning, and the paintings. The appropriated imagery. Next. And this one's called The Apparition. I guess just so you could see, here I used a little spray paint also. and La Madonna Negra, the next one. Everybody has, everyone's, I don't know, it's sort of, I find it odd because when you put the Madonna Negra has always been around. And I always find it odd that people are always like, oh, La Madonna Negra, you know, like. So the Russians have used it. Many cultures have it. And this was my version of the Madonna Negra. And this is an imagery that I took of a young pregnant woman. And I guess we threw a piece of material around her when I took the picture. And you can see she's pregnant and she has one hand, she has her hands, and then from behind her, there are other hands coming out. So in a way, and in the hand, in the right hand, she's actually holding a fetus. It was a print that I did many years ago, which nothing came about, so I just started to cut it up and use some old prints that I had. And here you can see the stenciling and my appropriated imagery and one of my images used.
So this is a good transition for us to talk about the representation of identity in your work. You celebrate people of color. You often show fluid and transgender identities. So I'm just curious if one of your goals is to challenge stereotypes, and then also beyond that, do you see your work as having a political or a social message?
I have to say that my works are socially and politically motivated and not meant to challenge stereotypes. Hopefully the images will enlighten and encourage a dialogue within us all to accept one's own identity, acknowledge the difference in all, to prompt feelings that one's actions are important, and to empower a person to persist even in the most appalling circumstances, and elicit compassion and celebrate humanity. So, here we are. Here we have Santero, which is a holy man, which is our holy man. And so, there are the next one. This one's called Down Low. So it's not pointing figures as stereotypes. It's basically understanding, bringing understanding and acceptance. And down low, I don't know if anyone knows what down low really means. I guess it's really basically associated with African Americans, but here we are. It's really can be associated with anyone. So it's basically, quote, a straight man who's married and he goes outside and finds a homosexual or transgender, denies the fact that he's straight, that this is really not happening, but this is really his preference. So it's also trying to understand that it's not, I'm not criticizing, it's just understanding. And in a way, it's done in a humorous way, the down low. And we have another collage. This is called Clásico. Now, Clásico is what I wanted to represent at this point. In a way, I've always done it, but I guess this is really coming out in a different way. But here we are. It's a classic image, I think. But at the same time, from behind, it's really ambiguous because it's and I'm known to do very androgynous. It's androgynous, but it's also a coming out. It's a transformation. It's a classical figure, and you could see from behind is the person trying to become what they really are. And so it's the inner self coming out. And here we have sort of a profile picture, and also a person looking at you. And everything that I hope is done with dignity. It's not pointing, it's acceptance. And it's acceptance of who you are. And then we have the next one, mujer. So here you have a woman, a very strong, powerful woman. And then next, and
So, right. So the other question I had was about your work and its political or social message. But I also just want to say it's 7 o'clock. So I realize if some people need to leave because their class is over or they have to go, but we're going to continue for just another few more minutes,
Okay,
if that's okay, Roca.
okay, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so just quickly then,
And if you have any last questions, feel free to type them in.
so here I wanted to bring more what could be perceived more as social and political. And here I did a painting about Pedro Albizu Campos, who's a Puerto Rican attorney and politician, and a leading figure in the Puerto Rican independence movement. And then this painting, which was recently done, which is a Photoprolate. And so these are imageries that I adhered and I worked. And then there's actually, I made, it's called American, the American tragedy. And American was coined by Tato Laviera, a Puerto Rican poet and playwright. And so here we are. It was 2019, Puerto Rico. I made my own flag for the American, which is also American. But I made my flag for the American. And here on the right, you know, we're a commonwealth. It's always like, you know, it has to do with identity, people's misconceptions of who we are. And at the time, the, I don't know, the person went to Puerto Rico and threw some bounty at the Puerto Ricans for the hurricanes. And so here on the right, we're handcuffed, and then I'm sorry, on the left, we're handcuffed, and on the right, we're being held hostage. There's a bounty on us. So that, and the way I think that is more in your face social political statements.
Right. Yeah, to reflect on the current moment. Yeah. So another topic I thought we could talk about was the religious icons, the use of halos in your work. I also want to make sure that we have time to talk about your recent work during COVID. I think it'd be exciting for people
Well,
to
just
see
quickly
that,
go
so.
through this. And,
Yeah.
and so here the halo represents an aura of energy that symbolizes and represents one's divine influence and power. It is the reminder of how, I guess you could. It's the reminder of how unusual and remarkable we are. This amazing gift must be managed with care, strong and steady to succeed in accomplishing our convictions despite difficulty or hardships. How we choose to use your aura is how you will be defined. And you threw in some images that you chose on hip hop, so you can.
Sure, yeah, it was interesting to hear your thoughts on portraying the hip hop artists like modern day saints.
Well, yeah, the hip hop, here we are. So we're all iconic, and this is just another version of how you can focus or your aura. You can go to, and Our Lady of Pop. androgynous also. And then,
So then the last thing was to find out what you've been doing. I mean, you've been obviously very active in making artwork, which is inspiring.
well, I've been actually working mostly in collage at this point. I had to, a lot of things happening, but here I put, I wanted to make sure, can you just go back? So here we are, an epidemic occurring worldwide or over a very wide area, crossing international boundaries and usually affecting a large number of people. So here we are, it's affecting everybody. And here are some of the images that I started to do in my seclusion. The artists are always secluded. It's like point A to point B to point A. And so these are more my current and just sort of rethinking how I was going to approach my life, my means of expression. And so I always find, here we go, traditions. I go back to the basics, and I did Boundless, and then I turned to Jose Campeche, who is a significant Puerto Rican painter of portraits and religious imagery. So here he is, he's Afro-Caribbean, and he's doing paintings and portraits for the, higher echelon people. Go to the next. And this was my interpretation of what he would be doing now. And so I did a Campeche con Madonna Negra. And people say, oh yeah, Campeche, Madonna Negra, but Campeche never did a Madonna Negra. I mean, it was plausible. And I was just fortunate to find an image that looked just like him. And I did that. And then I said, all right. So I said, oh, so I got hooked up working from my tradition or appropriating from the past. And then I did another Campeche, just go back, with him, with Yemoya. So here we are. So if he was here today, or maybe just a little different, this is what he would be doing.
Can you tell us who Yemoya is? Is that an?
It's the Orisha,
Yeah, okay.
water. So then we can go. So and then here he is. He did a picture of Dona, as you could see, Dona Maria Catalina de Urrutia, and she was known a woman in Puerto Rico, possibly the entire Caribbean. She married the governor and captain general of the, I'm thinking in English and going general, so I apologize if I'm stuttering, of the island, and daughter of a prominent and wealthy Cuban family. So here he does these portraits, and so I did my interpretations of these portraits, and he's also known for his landscapes. So you can see there's a landscape, it's very Rococo. The hat is, very, decadent and showing her jewelry and everything, and her attire, the lace. And so these can go to the next. So these were my interpretations of her. And this is Dona Maria. I figured I'd give her more like Dona Maria because it's also it's a term that it's very familiar. You call someone Dona, out of respect, and it also has to do with the Afro-Caribbean aspect of it. So here, and also you could see I've placed sort of a landscape to the right, and I contemporized, but and her hat is more of a scarf and probably traditional if she came via slavery, most likely. And then this is Campeche's Urrutia. So here I am, and I'm sure at that time, you could see the landscape I placed on the left-hand side. And this is my interpretation of, because I'm sure all these people of upper crust had their mistresses. So this is really my interpretation of the Doña Urrutia. I think, is that it? I think
Is that
that's
the
it.
last slide?
No. So here we are. So here we are in the pandemia. Sorry. Here we are in pandemia. And I'm thinking, well, here we are, virtual. Everything's virtual. So I'm thinking people are going more to porn sites and dealing with things. So I did my interpretations of cyber mistresses. I did there's one, and then you have the second one. Sort of funny.
Yeah.
Interesting, because here you are, you have these women, and at the same time, there's a hand that's reaching from underneath.
They're surreal.
Yeah. Next, and this was like a V8 moment, sort of piece. I was working on an imagery, and then a profile, a form, and then a piece of paper fell. Here I am, you can imagine, I'm cutting paper, I'm going through magazines, I got a million magazines around me, and I'm looking for that one little piece, which could be as smaller than your fingernail, you know, and a piece fell down, and I said, oh. And then I was like, oh, and I was looking, and then another piece, and I said, oh no. So, and then I said multifaceted. So, and I think this really is really of what's happening now, with all, you know, Black Lives Matter, it's like Puerto Ricans, identity. And so this was just perfect. And I don't know, is there any more?
I think we'll have to wrap it
Okay.
up now, because it's almost 7:15.
Well, thank you, everybody.
But thank you to everyone who joined us to listen to this wonderful insight on Roca's work. Thank you for your
Thank
time. And thank you, Yolany, for your thoughtful questions
Thank
too.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. That was the last one. Oh my God, I got a nice.
You did.